Kishore. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Once a week, as you know, we go on live with Inter iFast. As you know, we tell you this every week. Inter iFast was inspired by His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who founded the Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology, iFast. And there's a team of us that come together once a week to bring you amazing personalities that have served Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj personally. So tonight we have this amazing guest. Her name is Loka Devi Dasi, and she has done incredible services in the Institute. And so Inter iFast is so excited, all of us on the team, because we bring to social media Loka Devi Dasi, and she's going to share with us tonight some of the experiences she had serving Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. So I'm going to share a little bit with you about Loka. Loka has a long, in terms of being qualified personality, like I have pages and pages of what she has done with her life, because she's just this incredible person, actually. Now, I'm just going to share a few things, and then perhaps she might, share a few other things with you. Some things about Loka that I think about that just kind of inspires me is, first of all, she's a servant leader. She's a leader, and she has been a leader secularly, and she's also a leader spiritually. But what's really key is that in her leadership throughout her life, she's always been a servant. Every aspect of service that she has done has been in her offering herself to helping others. So a few of those things that I can, of course, she's a lawyer by profession. And she's served on a very high level of Social Security. Actually, she was in charge of the entire Social Security of the United States. And she has traveled internationally doing so many different projects in order to help people to come to different levels of higher consciousness. And then her relationship with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was so personal. Be right. She actually served Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj by assisting him with many of the projects that he was doing, especially during the time when he came to Gita Nagari. Loka, she just really, supported Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj by jumping in and purchasing a house for Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj to have here in Gita Nagari that served as a guest house for Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's God family to come so that they could have a nice place where they could stay. And she continuously, still up to today, arranges so many different ways to serve the Institute. She's just this incredible personality that for me has been an inspiration in my spiritual life ever since the first day I met her, because of the way that she's committed and dedicated to service to others. And so Loka, I know there's so many more things that I can say about you. However, I don't want to take up your time of sharing with us some of your memories of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Hare Krishna, Rajalila, really, I'm looking around saying, who is this person they're describing? Where is this person? Because it isn't me. But thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Embellished, of course, please let me tell everyone, because Rajalila is so gracious and Bhakti Tirtha Swami is so gracious and inspiring his direct servants like Rajalila. That's why people like me come off sounding so amazing, but I'm just like everyone else trying to do my bit. I guess I'll tell you a little bit, since this is about our memories of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, I'll tell you how I met him, what inspired that. I had been on a spiritual path, looking for something to connect me with God. And I was really doing a lot of inner work. And I was a part of another group that followed the Course in Miracles. And as part of that, as I was doing that kind of work and facilitating and learning a lot about myself through that process of also helping others, I just felt this urge to go deeper. And I just was really praying, please, I need to go deeper. And I'm not sure what that means, but help me find the way. And one of the people who was part of this other group, who it turned out later was a devotee, a disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Swami. You'll remember this, Vrajalila, that was Leela Avatar.
Yes.
said to me, at the time I was also working for the State Department and I was doing a lot of travel, and I had just come back from a trip to South Africa. This is right after Mandela's election as president and the shift away from apartheid. And he said, well, my spiritual master is just coming back from South Africa and he's going to be giving a talk on Sunday. So why don't you come? So I went down to the Institute, which at that time was on 9th Street in Washington, D.C. This was all taking place in the Washington, D.C. environment. And I walked in and there were lots of people there. And of course, there were deities up front. And in Krishna's wisdom, I didn't really focus on the deities. I was waiting for this personality to come and speak. And he came down and he began to talk, as he did so beautifully in reaching out to various people. And I said, this is who I've been waiting for. This is the person. This is what I've been looking for. Thank you. At the time, God, thank you, God. Didn't know it was Krishna, but I was just fascinated and was listening and saying, this is where I should be. Well, in spite of the fact that this is where I should be, Vrajalila, I met Vrajalila almost right away through the auspices of Leela Avatar. They invited me to come up and meet with Bhakti Tirtha Swami after the class. And I was so terrified. I said, oh, can't do that now. Jumped in my car and drove about as far away as I could get. Because at some level, I understood that this was an amazing, strong person who had something amazing to offer. But it was like, it would be, at the moment, it felt like plugging myself into an electric socket. That the power coming out of that, the energy from that was almost more than I could stand. I wanted it. And at the same time, I was just amazingly shy of it. So I drove thinking, boy, what am I so scared of? And what a little coward I am. But I just took off. But I came back. I kept coming back on Sundays for the talks. And over time, Vrajalila very much befriended me and got me involved, and is such a dear sister to me. We got very close. And I started taking the Bhakti Sastri class and getting trained up for being initiated, thinking to myself, really? People actually get down on their knees in front of these people and bow and pretend, say they're going to serve them the rest of their lives. And what does that mean? And I don't know if I can do this. But Krishna was so merciful that step by step, he just led me carefully. And I was nurtured all along the way by so many lovely people, very much including Vrajalila at the time. And lo and behold, there I was. I took initiation. And Bhakti Tirtha Swami was so compassionate and caring with me. Every interaction that I had with him was just so sweet and so patient. And I can remember him, he would call me in to his office or to his room, and we would have a chance to talk, especially if I was traveling. In those days, I was doing a lot of traveling. And he would always begin his conversations by asking me, and how are you doing? How are you doing? He cared so much about, I felt as though he cared about me so much personally. And I saw how much he did that with everyone else. His interactions were always not just personal, but he really exuded concern and consideration for the person in front of him, whoever they were at that time. And so he really put all my concerns to rest. And he never pushed me very hard, never said, you have to drop everything. I've often said, if I'd been told when I walked in the door, you need to give up your job, give up your home, give up your cats, put on tilak, put on a sari, and just live in the ashram, I would have been gone. I would have been gone. It was not something that would have spoken to me. And somehow he knew that. He was very attentive to making sure that I would be brought along in a way that would work for me and that would not scare me away, but keep me going. And I really appreciated that. I appreciate it even more today than I did then, although I could understand that this is some of what was happening. And an example of that, I think, in our interactions was that when he was very enthused, shortly after I was initiated, he was very enthused about the project at Gita Nagari. Gita Nagari at the time was not thriving. There were so few devotees there. And he knew it was part of Prabhupada's vision. He really wanted to begin to start to solidify the concept of Varnashram Dharma in ISKCON and in our own understanding. And so he went, he would bring us up to Gita Nagari, we would spend time there, we would explore there. But he was seriously looking for ways to be established there. And, you know, first he got the Institute house, and then there was a devotee who was selling another house. He asked me to buy that house. And I scrimped and saved and pulled some things around and figured out a way to do it, and kept that for a while. I was able to keep that and make that an offering for Gurudev at that time. And, but he started asking some of his more senior disciples to please move to Gita Nagari. So Rajalila and Ekavira Prabhus went to Gita Nagari, and Chintamani and Jagannath Pandit went to Gita Nagari, and he asked Yashoda Mai to go to Gita Nagari. So many of these senior devotees, who were most of the devotees that I knew in the Washington, D.C. area. And I one day thought, oh my gosh, he's asking everyone to go. And oh my gosh, what if he's going to ask me? But I couldn't stand it anymore. So I went to him and I said, Gurudev, do you want me to move to Gita Nagari? Heart and mouth, because I didn't want to move to Gita Nagari. I was not ready to do that. But I felt I had to ask. And he just looked at me so kindly and he said, no, you stay in your job. You stay doing your work. And so he, and in his writings to me, in the things that he said to me, he was very much focused on that process of learning how to be a leader, which was the theme. In addition to this search that I had on the spiritual side and wanting to go deeper, there was this other theme that really ran through my life of leadership and teaching people, you know, bringing people together, building organizations. And Gurudev really encouraged me to do that. And as he encouraged me to do that, my career also began to bud and move. I moved higher and higher up the ladder. I ended up getting an opportunity to go to Nigeria. And I actually invited Rajalila and Leela Avatar to come with me to do some conflict resolution building. I went with USAID. And I was positioned there as the head of that project, a democracy building project, for a couple of years. And I remember asking Gurudev if I could do that. And he was just completely open and excited. Oh my goodness, yes, how wonderful, please go. And then when I asked him if Rajalila and Leela Avatar could come, he said, absolutely. And so we had a nice little team there walking around country. They did most of the walking around country, but teaching people something about leadership through the process of personal relationships and connections, and learning not to be, there's so much civil strife and disagreement and tribalism in that part of the country, in that part of the world. And this was an opportunity for us to bring them something else. And very much in the mood of our guru, who was a bridge preacher, who didn't speak necessarily in the most overtly sastric manner or the most hardcore fashion, but who really found a way to connect with professional organizations and professionals who saw the world through different lenses. We went and tried to do like this and imitate what he was telling us, teaching us how to do, to bring people in and help them understand different ways of seeing the world. And so after I came back from that, that's when I went to Social Security and I became their general counsel. And then I became the deputy commissioner for the disability program and the chief administrative appeals judge. So my career actually grew and blossomed all under Gurudev's tutelage. And I want to say something about that, because it was never about trying to take the next position up. It was always a case of what will help me grow spiritually. And Gurudev would tell me, you know, he said, you are surrounded by people who really see the world in very different ways. You have to learn to hold to your principles. You have to learn to stick with what's right and what's real. And of course, those are the principles that we all follow and that are in the Gita and in Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam. The principles that we want to follow as Krishna conscious entities. But what I discovered is that as I tried to learn the lessons of Sastra and really become a better devotee, become more Krishna conscious, every position that I was in actually developed a challenge for me that allowed me to really face where I was lacking, face what I needed to learn, face what I needed to accomplish. So I began to see them as opportunities and stepping stones that Gurudev had arranged so nicely for me to really imbibe what it was to be Krishna conscious and live in this world, in this material world, to do both together, side by side, in much the way he did. And each time, surprisingly, when I stopped being ambitious and driving for what I wanted, and I viewed these lessons, and with his conversation really helped me see what it was I wanted to learn and needed to learn, Krishna opened up. Once I had the lesson, it was like new opportunities opened up. They kept opening up. They kept opening up. And I took with me, as I began to understand, I took with me this sense that if I moved into the next job, it wasn't an ego trip. It wasn't, oh, guess what? I'm running this organization. I'm really hot stuff. It was, I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a reason. And what's that reason? And how do I become a good example of what my Gurudev stands for all of these people who may never, ever have another opportunity to see Krishna consciousness in action? But how can I be that example on behalf of my Guru? And that really is the way I hope all of us approach our daily lives. That's really who he wanted all of us to be. How do we follow his example and stand up and show the world the kind of Guru that he was? And that really is so much the principle that he gave me in the way that he behaved on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, because he was Srila Prabhupada's emissary. He was the example of the way Srila Prabhupada showed up in the world long after Srila Prabhupada had left this planet. So I'm thinking about other, I would come back from some of these trips, or this is before he left, and we would spend, he would just call me up after. He asked me to get very involved in doing deity service. So I spent quite a bit of time in working for Radha Gopinath, serving Radha Gopinath at the Institute in Maryland. And then after our Saturday programs were over, a lot of times he would call me up into his office, up into the room, and we would sit there and just talk. And it's terrible that I don't have nuggets of wisdom to pass along, word for word of the things that he said. But what I'm left with are there was just so much interest and caring, and his ability to talk around so many of the things that were happening in the world and so many of the experiences that I was having, and always bring them back to a Krishna conscious way, helping me see everything that I was going through in a Krishna conscious way, instead of almost trying to straddle parallel paths. Today I'm a devotee and I'm at the Institute and I'm serving, but on Monday I'll be back at the office and then I'm somebody else. No, he really helped weave those two paths together for me in a way that helped me move forward. And always remember, whatever setting I'm in, I'm a devotee first. I'm a devotee first. That's what I do. And then to convey that in a way that isn't frightening for or off-putting for everyone else out there who may not see the world the way that I see it, or the way that devotees overall see it, but who have a right to understand as best they can the gift that we've been given. I know one day I was talking with him, I think it was actually probably about something that had happened on a Saturday at the Institute. And we were talking about preaching opportunities. And he said to me, all we do is plant seeds. He said, that's it, we plant seeds. It's up to Krishna whether they grow. It's the individual has to take the step to allow that to grow, but we plant seeds. So he said, just keep planting seeds. And that took a real burden off of me, the sense that I needed to be a good preacher. I needed to get out there. I needed to make devotees. I needed to encourage people to understand what Krishna consciousness was all about. And that concept of just planting seeds has made it easier for me to open subject matter up, say something to someone, cast something in a light that they might not think about around, you're not the body, or all spirit souls are equal, no matter what living entity they may be lodged in, and help them begin to understand. When you think of the numbers of lifetimes that we have all been through and the growth that we make, you don't want to miss that opportunity of planting a seed, because you don't know that the seed that you plant for someone in this lifetime or some entity in this lifetime, how that will fructify, whether it takes 20,000 lifetimes or 100,000 lifetimes, or whether it happens next lifetime. This is what we're here to do, to really encourage. And this is what Gurudev did, and this is the way he spoke to me so much all the time, but always compassionately, you know, always caring, always with consideration. I'm just thinking that there are just so many little interactions that were personal. Because I was working, I wasn't at the Institute every day. I didn't bring him his meals. I didn't prepare his meals. I didn't do all the little things that someone like Rajalila, that Ekavira, that, you know, that they've done, that Kunti, that Madhava does. I always felt that I was a little bit on the periphery, and yet Gurudev, in his great compassion, always brought me in, you know, always made me feel like I was part of that inner circle. And I think, well, do I have time for a story?
Yes, please.
I mean, this is, I don't talk about this much, but as I was saying that about bringing me into the periphery, from the periphery, yeah, this is what comes to mind. It's just a really powerful, powerful story. It's the story when he was leaving his body, and you know, there were so many devotees who were coming to Gitanagari, so many devotees who were spending time there. And I would go to work during the week, and I would come up on the weekend. I would go to class. I would be there all weekend, and then I would drive back so I could be at work on Monday. And you know, I got the call. I remember getting the call. I think it was Thursday night or Friday night. I can't remember, but it was in the evening. I'm thinking I'd be going to Gitanagari the next day, and I got a call from Madhava saying, "It's time. It's time." So I jumped in the car and I got to Gitanagari as fast as I could. And everyone was chanting, and there were so many devotees, and people were cycling through. And that room that he was in, you know, was so small. There wasn't room for a lot of people. And there were so many senior devotees there who wanted to be with him. And I had this sense that I really wanted to be there when he left. But, you know, who was I? So I found a way, in the way that the room gave, there was a little window at the very end of the room on the outside, and I managed to squeeze myself in through people, not even inside the house, but I was outside the house at the window, so that I had a direct view of Gurudev on his bed and all the devotees in the room. And I was just chanting and praying, but I thought, this is it. I don't have to move. I'm just here. This is here. I mean, that way I will be here. And in mere moments, you may not remember this, Raj, but you beckoned me to come in. And I really felt like, oh, wow. I mean, Gurudev is giving me so much mercy. So I squeezed myself past all those people, got in, you know, squeezed through the living room, got into the room, and there I was. Well, quite shortly thereafter, they kept trying to funnel people out of the room. And Mother Padma and Mother Kunti were both there too. And of course, we were all really close. And Padma said, "I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving." So we got funneled a little bit out of the main area, but there was a little hallway area, not outside, but just behind there, where we huddled for a while all these other people, devotees, kept channeling through. And every time somebody looked at us or stuck their head around the door, Padma was like, "Not leaving. You're just not leaving." And so ultimately, as the time drew near, we went back into the room, and there we were standing with Mother Kamagiri, as a matter of fact, the four of us. And there came a moment when they weren't allowing more devotees in, and by Krishna's mercy, by Guru's mercy, I was there. Rajalila was there, Ekavira was there, Radhanath Swami was sitting right over there, Madhava was there. And I you know, when I feel, when I question, when I wonder what happened, when I think I'm not strong enough, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, when I remember, if there's any thought in my mind that somehow this is apocryphal or it's not meaningful, I remember that wish was granted, and that for that wish, for giving me the benefit, the great benefit of being there with such an amazing group of people when he actually left his body. I was there when he left his body. I owe something to my guru. I can't ever forget that I need to stand up and be strong for him, for this movement, for what he wanted us to do. I can't falter if I'm not feeling like doing my rounds, if I'm not feeling like reading, if I'm just not feeling like serving. I have to remember I was given a great gift that day, and I can never pay that gift back. So many other gifts too. I mean, it was just in the way, but it all culminated in that moment for me. And he is, I will tell you, he's still with me every day. I talk to him every day. He gives me guidance. I feel like I get clearly directed to do this or do that, or don't do so much like that. And of course, I am surrounded by wonderful God brothers and God sisters who also can put it in words instead of just having that instinct or that sense, that feeling. And we're so protected by Radhanath Maharaj and Sachinandana Swami and Bhakti Swami. And so there's so much wonderful guidance out there. But Gurudev is with us every day. He's with me every day. And I can hear him. I can hear him in the way that advice comes, or that lessons come, or that something shows up, the insight that I have. I can hear him telling me about something, or talking to me, or saying, do like this, do more like this, do less like that. And it's just wonderful. It's wonderful to feel that connected in this world. I remember there was a moment when some of the people that I came in with from this other institute left iFast. They had come in, they'd taken initiation, Nisha and Mandara, and some devotees who'd come in, and they made a decision to depart and break the contract. And I think Gurudev might have been concerned, because they had been my friends. I'd known them. He might have been concerned. But we ended up, he asked me how I was doing about this, and had I spoken to Mandara, was I speaking to anyone? And we talked a little bit, and I said, no, not so much, that these devotees were not so interested in speaking with any of us right now. They had taken their distance, and they were keeping their distance. And I remember saying to him at the time, so neophyte, just so neophyte, but saying, but I can't imagine not chanting my rounds every day. And he burst into that effulgent smile that he had, that big, where the whole room just lit up. He was the sun and the moon and the stars all wrapped up together. And he said, yeah, can you imagine not chanting your rounds every day? I mean, there was just that moment, that connection where, again, I didn't deserve any of this mercy. I didn't even know what I was doing half the time. But that sense of encouragement, of inspiring me, of saying, of nurturing me along, so that that even if I stumbled on the path, there was that sense that he was there to catch me, or that he would have his lieutenants there to catch me, and that we would keep going forward. And it was those little moments that I remember still, that keep me going, that keep me moving forward, even though my service to him was so indirect in so many ways, and just so not on a daily or routine basis. But he included me. He made me feel like I was part of everything, and that he really cared about me personally, not just cared for me as one of a bunch of people, somebody in a bunch of people in the room, but that he knew about me, cared about me. When I was in Nigeria, the president, who at the time was Clinton, came for a visit. It was going to be a whole big deal, and our program was going to be up front and center and on display. And I was just, here comes Maya, and Nigeria is kind of austere anyway. And I picked up the phone to call him in advance of this grand visit that was coming in, that everybody was so caught up in. And just like he just, it's Loka, took the phone. We talked from Nigeria. We just talked on the phone, like no big deal. It was great. He's so available. He was always so available to me. And I know that many of you have had similar experiences, how he was so available. He was so accessible. He was so nurturing and caring. He always brought us along. He always gave each of us what we needed. And in my case, I think I probably was given more sugar than the sting of the rod, because that's how I kind of keep moving. And he knew that. But I wouldn't say I was tolerated. My nonsense wasn't tolerated. He would always remind me what was important. He would remind me to to stay the course. He would remind me in those environments not to get sucked up, not to get lost in what was going on out there, but to really remember what was first and foremost, what was important. And that helped enormously. It just helped enormously. So that even though I had to say play the charade of being in the professional environment and I had to deliver, I had to perform, I had to do that work, I always tried to look at it through a different lens and not give it too much importance, not pretend that it was what was the meaning or the point. It was just something that I was doing, and that it, to the degree it facilitated, and it facilitated me in the sense that I was able, as I say, to support some of his projects, whether it was a house in Gitanagari or an altar for Radha Gopinath at the Institute House, or just various little things that I could do for some of the devotees. Those were the things that I tried to remember to spend time on, so that I wouldn't be just going to work, but that the work actually had some purpose to bring it back to the Institute. I'm sort of thinking, do I have anything else to say? I'm not sure. Do you have other questions, maybe? Anything you want to ask me?
That was just so amazing, Loka. It's just like you brought back some memories that even I had kind of forgotten. It's so beautiful because, just as you said, you know, Guru Maharaj, he valued you personally, and I do understand that for him, you were that embodiment of what he wanted to see happen with many, many, many people in the world, that they can be in their jobs and at the same time be Krishna conscious. That was a part of what he was bringing to Washington, D.C. at that time. And you were just so much a disciple. You had so much of that mood of even though you had these very high, you know, profile jobs, when you came to see him, you were like, okay, I'm going up to the room. And, you know, you were just like so humble. And I always remember that about you, how those high profile jobs in no way affected you in terms of the humility that a disciple has. And so I'm thinking about, since he has left the body and now you are, you know, you made an amazing leap, I think, of faith by just selling your home that you lived in for years and years, and, you know, just move out to Gainesville, Florida, where you didn't really know too many people, and you're connected there, of course, with the Gainesville Temple. And you are serving, as always, you are serving as a coach for many people. So I'm wondering, in these times that we're in now, the service that you're doing as a coach, I'm guessing some of that is not always with devotees of Krishna. And so I'm just wondering how some of those tools that you may have learned from Guru Maharaj, or what stands out for you in that role of a coach that you use, that you got from Gurudev?
So just as a little bit of a background, you know, my training as a lawyer, I mean, I'd been a lawyer, but I was being moved more and more into management. And I'd always been interested in how to build organizations and how to connect people in teamwork, you know, and in Gurudev's language, how to build community, you know, building community and understanding the critical nature of community in bringing us together. And so, again, the opportunity arose as I was making my way up the ladder. As you know, there came a point when I could see that there'd be a shift to get certified as a coach. And so I did. I've got 2 certifications as a coach while I completed my other work. And I found that those skills really applied in the way that I brought leadership skills to an organization, because instead of being a top-down directive leader, it's very much, when you're coaching, it's very much about listening, engaging, seeing the other person with eyes of dignity, letting them feel that you appreciate their dignity and that they have something meaningful to contribute. And that is sort of how it began for me. Now, as a more or less full-time coach, degree, anything's full-time, you're right. I do a lot of coaching for the federal government, for the United States federal government. So I work with various agencies, as I have in the past, as well as with devotees. And I think the primary thing that I try to do as a coach, in the same way that Gurudev did it, was to listen first. I mean, you spend a lot of time listening. What's going on with this person? And to hear not just what they're saying, but to appreciate that under what's being said, there's a whole emotional, psychological, and maybe spiritual question happening underneath that. And to try to listen, to get to that level, to try to help someone feel safe enough to actually explore those questions. And of course, when you're working with the federal government and employees around a job, their job, you can't necessarily dig in an overt way around those things. With devotees, you can. But it's what's interesting is that a lot of the feedback I get is that sense of people feeling like they've been heard, feeling as though I'm not judging them, which is also really what I never felt judged by Gurudev. That's different than making assessments. We make assessments. We appreciate that someone maybe is not so adept at this or not so qualified at that. You know, it's fair to make assessments. The judgment is when we do it in a way that says, I'm better than you, I'm superior to you, you're not so good. And so Gurudev, he made assessments. He was good. He was quick to call us out if we weren't doing something properly, or if we needed to learn, or if we were getting in our own way. But at least in my case, and certainly what I felt I observed with him with others, was that it was always done in a way that didn't throw the person out with the anartha. And so I try to bring that to my coaching with people, because so much of what's going on in the world today, and you certainly know this through your nonviolent communication studies, so much of what's happening in the world is that people feel afraid to say what's really on their mind. They don't feel like they're going to be heard. They don't feel like they can make a difference. And if someone else is spewing garbage at them, it's really quick to want to spew it back. That's just human nature. But if we want to be better than that, if we want to really tap into our true nature as spirit, soul, and as servants of Krishna, then we have to find a way to let go of that nonsense and let go of that garbage. And what I try to do as a coach is to provide the space for someone to really begin to appreciate who they really are, so that they can separate it from their sense of identity of, I have this position, I work for this agency, I have this role, maybe I'm a mother, maybe I'm a father, maybe I'm a teacher, any of those things, and to just really begin to question and value who they are as people. And how do they want to show up? How do they want to bring that into the world that they're part of every day? And ask the deeper questions. What kind of a person am I? What are my principles? What do I value? Instead of being caught and at the affect of all the circumstances around, the way we all are, surrounded by circumstances.
Yeah, that's so clear and so important, because so many leaders, even in our own communities, they so much base their leadership on, like you said, the top, I'm the authority, and everybody else, they listen to what I say, and they're not so much in tune to who they really are as people, just as a human. And so that's something that I remember our Guru Maharaj spent so much time trying to help, even within our own organization, leaders Absolutely. To develop that mood. So thank you so much.
And he spoke, as you said early on, he spoke so clearly about servant leadership. I mean, exactly. That concept of the leader as a servant, the leader isn't not there to instruct, to guide, to demand, to force, to push, to mold, to make it his way. That's a form of charismatic leadership. And then what happens when the leader's gone, everything falls apart. It's to serve in Guru's case, to serve the devotees, to serve the institution, to serve Srila Prabhupada in a way that will allow things to grow, to flourish, to expand. That's the whole point, to serve. And so, it's really critical, I think, and it's not what we see so much of in our culture. If you want to be a leader or not, and we're all servants, but even as a leader, it's not about the title. It's not about the position. It's not about the hallelujahs and all the wonderful perks and benefits and awards and things that you may get. I'm here to serve. How do I do that best? How do I care for these people? That's Guru's mood. That's what he gave us. That's what he lived every single day. And that's, I believe, what he really wanted all of us to embody.
Yes. Yes. And that's what we're living for, to embody that and share that with others. And so, Anna, I want to see if you have a question for Loka at this time. And then I'm going to ask Bakia if you have a question, a quick question. Anna?
Hare Krishna, dear Loka. Thank you so much for, can you hear me?
Yes, now.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's, for me, it's a real example how you can occupy such high position in the overall, in the material world, and at the same time be such a spirit, such a student in Krishna consciousness. I had so many questions while you're talking. Can I ask you two, and then you decide if you want to answer one or both or whatever you prefer?
I'm at your service, whatever.
First question I wanted to ask you is, so you mentioned in the beginning that with each position brought some obstacles, and that you called milestones later on in that Krishna consciousness helped you deal with them, and you found out how one helped the other. I was wondering if you could share at least one example of such, maybe such obstacle, so it would be practical for me to learn from.
Yeah, actually I can. So, and it's the one that I always remember this because it really was a turning point for me. So when I was in Nigeria, when I had gone to do a strategic planning and team building process. And they were really impressed over a couple of days I was there for a week, as a consultant, and they were really impressed. And they asked me if I would please come and be the leader and manage this entire program of democracy building. And so I thought about it and said, okay, but my condition is that I want to be able to build a program of conflict resolution. I'll do the other things that you've been doing, but I have a way I want to do conflict resolution. So please, I want to have permission to do that. And they said, fine. They said that they would do that. So I took the job. I was in Nigeria for the next almost 2 years and developed this program. As I said, Vrajalila was part of that. And, as we got to the point where we were winding down, there was a lot that had shifted in the country. A lot of the big mucky mucks back at USAID in Washington were jumping on the bandwagon that, they did conflict resolution and they wanted to come out and see how this was done. And they had a point of view and the program became successful. It became so successful that the United Nations picked it up. The UN Development Program picked it up. The British DFID program picked it up. I mean, it took root. And my first reaction was, well, I did this, right? That was my first reaction. I did this and not one person is saying, gee, thanks, or wow, what a great job. There was nothing. And I had to really reflect on that as it began to take on a life of its own. And there was all this furor around, and I watched people piling on, looking to grab glory by association, if you will. And I suddenly understood it's not about me. It's never about me. If I really wanted to be a servant, if I really had gone there with the intention of giving something of value that would help in that country that was breaking away from civil war, which is where we were when we started, it couldn't be about me. What was important was that the program had taken off, that so many people, we were getting so many stories around the country of the ways in which the program had assisted them in managing local conflict and local strife. And they had a different perspective. And that was the point. It wasn't about me. And it was an opportunity for me to see my ego sitting right up there on the shelf going, hey, what about me? And having to say, no, it's not about me. And what's interesting about that is as soon as I got that lesson and I actually accepted it, I came back to the States in a very humble mind thinking, okay, I just want to make sure I can get a job now to just sort of keep moving in the federal system. And I got general counsel of Social Security. I mean, this is a job, 20 years earlier, if you'd said I would be the general counsel of any, I was like, huh? So I took that mood of, it's not about me. It changed the way that group did work, and it fed into the way the agency did work, and it led to even more things. So there's an example of how I had to see myself in that light and face it and let go of it. And then Krishna arranged for stuff to just happen.
Wow, this is incredible. This is just something to just it's hard to wrap my mind around. If I were in that position, this takes so much courage. So thank you so much. And the second question, that might be silly, but I know that a lot of people, at least in the beginning, they kind of run into this problem. If they occupy official positions in the outside world, and then they meet Krishna consciousness, and they kind of are interested, and once they get to the point where they can preach themselves, or they kind of want to preach, but then there's like kind of like this, people can be like a little taken aback, like they don't want their colleagues, or they don't want their official staff members kind of learn that they're wearing like signs on their foreheads, or going with like little bags, or like stuff like that, like. So like they're kind of like trying, like, not that they're ashamed of it, but they think like they would be judged. They think like other people might think that they're in the sect or something. And you, of all people, you occupy such high positions in judicial system and everything, and then you could just so easily do both. Like, how did you deal with that?
So I didn't, Gurudev, one of Gurudev's basic principles was, how do we speak to others in a way that makes it palatable? So I didn't stand up in front of everybody and say, I'm a devotee, I've got tilak on, I chant my rounds, who are you? That was not my mood. I was discreet. I mean, if there was an opportunity to speak, and some of my team, my senior team, the people that I worked with most closely, there'd be opportunities, especially if we had to travel together, or if we were in a situation at a conference together. You get to know people over a 5 or 6 year period, and there'd be opportunities to speak to them more fully about what I was doing, because they could see that there was something, but they didn't say what. But, I always remembered what Gurudev said about making it palatable. And, one example was that when I got to SSA as GC, every one of there are 10 major divisions. So, I reported directly to the commissioner, and I was in charge of mine. And everybody had these Christmas parties, come and have just walk around, have some punch, just to say hi to the different groups that we work with. So I thought to myself, what a perfect opportunity for prasadam distribution. So I pulled together with Mother Kunti and Mother Padma, thank goodness for Mother Padma, and we put together a spread. And we invited everybody to a Christmas party, except what they were getting was Krishna's prasadam. And by the time I left that position, we were getting 300 people every year who were looking forward to all the parties. They wanted to come to the GC party because the food was so good. And there was just mercy being distributed right and left. We didn't tell everyone it's prasadam, it's sanctified, it's this, it's that, it's the other. It was just, but that's what it was. We were distributing, we were planting those seeds. So you just have to pick your time and space and find a way to do it. But you never forget who you are. You're a servant of Krishna. And you're representing your guru. Never forget that.
Thank you for being such an example of such a strong stance, and at the same time such delicate delivery when it comes to others.
You all see things in me that I don't see in myself, but thank you so much for your kind words. Hare Krishna.
I remember, Loka, when we used to give, I think we would give you candy, or maybe you would buy that candy and we would offer it, or you would offer it and just have that sitting in your office.
I did. Yeah. I had a bowl of, and I got this from Mother Rukmini when she had the store. She had those hot ginger candies, or the little sesame candies, at the cash register. And so I had to look around for something that would be offerable and not full of chemicals. And I settled on those little sesame candies. You know, they're made with a little bit of sugar and sesame. And I had every week I just brought bowls in it. And because, you know, a lot of times if you'd have meetings, people were always distributing candy and Mars bars and things. I had those. It's amazing how many people took candy. So again, there was all year round, there was always something for someone to have, and they loved it, and they would come in and take more. Krishna works in amazing ways, you know.
Planting seeds. Bakia, would you like to ask a question?
Oops. Oh, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Loka. I just want
in
to say
Kazakhstan.
Yeah, I'm very far from you. Even then, we have even, you know, 10 times difference. It's a morning, early morning here. So and I often say something like, I'm in your future already.
How nice.
Yeah, and it's okay. It's nice, you know, it's safe actually. So what I wanted to, I just want to thank you very much for telling the story about your connection with your Guru Maharaj. It's just incredible, you know, to meet disciples of Bhakti Tirtha Swami. I got to know him from his book, and you said something like, when you met him, this insight came to you. This is the person I was waiting for. This is the person I was looking for. I had the same, even if I haven't met him. And it was 8th of November 2015 when I opened his book, you know, and I was thinking like, this is the person I was looking for. Can you imagine it? I mean, it's so incredible. Such a person, you know, and we're so happy. And now we keep this connection with him through you. And just wanted to emphasize that that's very important for us, for those who didn't know him when he was alive, to have this connection with his disciple. Thank you very much. And giving this example of, yes, combining work, you know, this position, and they can imagine how it was. It is not easy to do it. And my question is, you know, I've read recently his book, Leader in Modern Lives, number 2. It has 2 parts, this book, and it was about he's giving, like, he makes this connection between leaders in the past, in Vedic times, Maharaja Prithu, Bhishma Devi, with the modern leaders, you know, and he gives this definition, leader, servant. And when you were telling about yourself, I just, you know, this like parts of the books came into my mind when he was describing it, how to be a leader and at the same time to be a servant. And I just wanted to, when you coach people, how do you how do you, Rajalila asked this question, how do you use tools? Yeah. And my question is, what is your, like, the main book you are using in your, like, work now, in your teaching now?
Of his books?
Yes.
I you know, I can't say that it's any one book. I mean, there's so many, and it especially when you're coaching, you're working with where that person is at the moment. All I can tell you, you've made, let me do a little bit of a detour here and just answer it this way by saying, I really appreciate what you've just said, because it's a perfect example, of how we hear so much that what's important is the Vani and not the Vapu, that it's not the physical presence. The physical presence is so helpful because we're here in our own physical presence, but that what lasts, what we're drawn to, are the teachings, the Vani, the who this person is, what he's expressing. And we heard so beautifully just a couple of weeks ago when we were having his disappearance, well, festivities isn't the right word, but the celebration when all the international community came together and was talking about this. We heard from Bhakti Swami, we heard from Radhanath Swami, we heard from Satchidananda Swami, we heard from so many, from Vrajalila, how important it is to keep reading his books, because that's where his Vani is. That's how you get to know him. And so for me, it's really a case of just keep reading those books, keep pulling what I can from them. In my case, it buttresses a personal interaction that I had with him. But it's all of the teachings, it's everything he stood for that shows up, I hope, in the way that I coach and what I try to express to others. And not even just coaching, but in the way that I interact. You know, I'm on the board at Krishna House. The devotees come here for various meetings, or they want to come here for programs, or they ask me to speak to them. And that's not coaching, but it's how am I going to live my life now through his teachings, all of them. They're all really meaningful. I happen to be very fond of spiritual leadership too. I mean, volume 1, I'm sorry, the first volume, it's the second book in the series, but it's spiritual leadership 1. I happen to be very fond of that volume, but they're all, I mean, the Beggar series, there's so much in them that really informs, and that I keep going back to as a deep well to say, do I get this? Do I understand this? What am I not doing? How much more do I need to learn? You know, it's that constant deep dive that we have to keep doing in everything in order to embody, because he was so expert in so many ways, in so many different angles, with so many different people, that for me to say, pin it down to one book just doesn't work. I just am constantly trying to say, what did I learn in this interaction? Or what did I not follow up on? What is it I need to learn how to do better in all that he gave us? I hope that answers your question, Prabhu.
Yes, thank you very much for this answer. I just wanted to tell once again that it's so important for us to hear from his disciples. You are showing this example of relationship, guru and disciple. You know, and now in the world where all relations are becoming weaker and weaker, yeah, even between parents, between partners, even between mother and children, this becoming so like weak, yeah, way, not stable. And you give this example of guru and disciple, yeah, one personality was the other personality, which are so strong and the life and forever. So, and it gives such hope and such inspiration for all of us.
He is my
Thank
Lord
you very
birth
much.
after birth. He is my Lord birth after. I mean, that means something. But you know, Prabhu, the relationship is there for you too. It's there for anyone who wants it through those books.
Yeah,
he is available to everyone. It's going to look different.
That's very sad. There's nothing you can do.
All right, Volga Sherry. Okay, there she comes. Okay, yeah. So, okay, so something you froze a little bit for a minute just now. But anyway, however, we just want to check in with Kishore Rani to see if Kishore Rani has anything, and then we'll close out for the evening. Kishore Rani?
I just would like to say thank you very much for, it was really inspiring, all your stories that you shared and all your bonds that you have with the Guru Maharaj is really, really inspiring. And the story about it all, it's not about me, it was really powerful too for me also. And how you got this present from your Guru Maharaj when he left and you were there, and that you talk to him every day. Thank you so much for sharing such personal stories. Thank you.
It's, you know, we are a personal movement. How can we share something that's meaningful and not be personal? So thank you for receiving so nicely.
You know, Kishore Rani is teaching, her and Bhakyat, actually, they're teaching a course on Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's Spiritual Warrior 4 to about 200 devotees in Russia right now.
Nice. So nice.
Yeah. So we're so much, happy to see, as you were sharing, how Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is so present and so available. And devotees are, just connecting with him in so many different ways. So yeah, thanks, Kishori. Ekavir Prabhu wants to ask a question before we cut off.
I thought I saw him over there. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, he's snuck in with us.
Haribo.
Come on in.
Haribo, Loka.
Hare Prabhu.
Yes, thank you so much. It was so wonderful to hear you just pouring out the different pastimes and practical advice to all of us, especially those who are balancing the material and their spiritual lives. And you touched on these points, but I would like you to summarize for us, if you would, because you are such an expert at doing this. And that is, what recommendations do you have for, or would you be willing to give for those persons who are engaged in their vocations, but at the same time, the movement or devotees may not have the most favorable image, and at the same time, you maintain your identity and engage in your service while, how could I say, dealing with the image of the devotees or the image of the organization that may not be so favorable. How can you reconcile those?
You're saying image to the outside world?
Yeah, say for instance, like I recall one time you shared with me, you were walking through the airport with one of your your colleagues, and he was a director in another department. And a devotee approached you with the books, and he said something that wasn't so favorable. And you thought, he's like, I couldn't say anything at that point in time, but hey, I'm one of them.
I guess this comes from, it just comes from appreciating that we're all on the same path, but we're in different places on the path. So, there are a lot of folks out there, they can only see on the surface, they see somebody with paint on their forehead, or, dressed in odd clothes, or, what is that weird chanting going on in the street, or, they have their own blocks to that. And I mean, this really is the heart of Krishna consciousness, isn't it? If we truly appreciate Lord Chaitanya's mercy, if we really understand that, then who am I to blame someone who doesn't have the consciousness to understand, any more than I would blame a preschooler for not understanding algebra or calculus, It's so this person doesn't understand. So how can I find a way to say something? And it may not be very deep. It may just be that little tiny first seed, get your toe wet in this, that this person in the airport is, they're doing their best. They believe in what they're doing. They stand for something, whatever it might be in the given moment, to try to move the other person away from the fault finding, the criticism, the inability to understand, the fear that motivates so much of those kinds of commentaries, and just help them move in another direction, move forward a little bit. It makes me think of Jagai and Madhai, I mean, who else? Nityananda says to Lord Chaitanya, these are the people that we're here to save, not the ones who get it, not the ones who are pure and perfect and wonderful. I mean, yeah, sure. Wouldn't I like to be able to sit at Bhakti Swami's feet every day, all day, every day, and not worry about everything else? But we're supposed to be out there for the Jaghai and Mudhais, you know, for the ones who don't get it. And what I've learned, I mean, in a lot of ways through my somatic coaching, another thing that I've learned for me is that if I can't see every living entity, if I can't see the soul, the part and parcel of Krishna that's in there, and treat that with dignity, if I can't appreciate the dignity that is inherent in all of those living entities, then I myself am not being Krishna conscious. It's that ability to at least try, that wanting to see them in a dignified, meaningful way that allows me to want to give them something of value instead of just thinking, ugh, you know, who wants to deal with you? Which, and I mean, I have enough of those moments, just like I think probably most of us, you know, ugh, darn, you know, but that wasn't Guru's mood. That wasn't Guru's mood. That's not his godbrother's moods. That wasn't Lord Chaitanya's mood. That wasn't Srila Prabhupada's. Think about Srila Prabhupada. Think about who he engaged with at the time, the 60s. Those crazy kids, half of them on drugs, dirty, unwashed, down in the Bowery. People that my parents didn't want me to hang out with. Probably your parents didn't want you to hang out with. And where was Srila Prabhupada? Who became his first lieutenants? I mean, this is the essence of what we stand for.
Thank you.
That may not be a summary, I'm sorry, but that's just my response.
Oh, that was, you just, yeah, you gave like a.
That was beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Loka. We're going to have to invite you back. We want to invite you back. You've given so much. I don't think we've ever kept anyone so long on a
It seemed a little longer than half an hour, but I'm not paying attention. I have a watch. So.
So thank you so much. You're such an example of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. You know, you're such, you really exemplify his mood, and so much of everything about you speaks to who he was. Just like, yeah, he was one of those persons in the airport that was giving books, and he was very educated, and many people, you know, called him all kinds of names and everything else, and he continued to do that service. Even he went into countries where it wasn't even allowed. So
exactly.
You know what I mean? That's his example for us, and he was educated, fully educated. So we thank you so very much. We thank you, and our team, we're looking forward to doing more things with you.
Thank you so much to the team for facilitating this. And again, thank you to you, Rajalila and Ekavira, because you really are the examples that I follow in trying to be a better servant to our Guru. I mean, you're my seniors, and you have been there from day one, showing me how to do it. So, you know, your selfless service is just an example for all of us. Thank you.
You are our heart sister.
Yes.
We love you very much.
Yes,
You are my heart sister and brother too, Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.